Hey folks, Dane at Jonah Guitars, and I'm just going to bring you back in on this 65 triple O Martin, and go ahead and turn the camera down here. I am about to, let's get that block out of the way. I'm about to tap the nut out of here, and then I've got the guitar mounted in the neck jig. And I will explain a little bit about that. I'm not going to take a lot of time on that because this isn't a neck jig lesson per se, and I don't use the neck jig nearly, I don't know if I'll say nearly as much as I used to. I never really got completely into using it. It's been helpful in some instances. It's helped me learn something about necks that I may not have learned without it. But so I'm just going to take this nut out now. I put my visor, my magnifier on, and checked here just to make sure if I needed to scribe around the nut to cut lacquer. This nut has been out, and there is no lacquer that is stuck around it, so I'm not even sure it's in there tight. Seems like it, so I'm just going to tap it. This block just happens to be a block I use in another fixture to hold a pig head down. I realize I'm holding the block in your way. Hold it from this side. That didn't take an awful lot of effort to pop that out. So, nut out. That's done. So let's scan you back here to the whole board. See if we're out as wide as we can be. You know what? I'm going to see if I can get some light over here because right now all I have is my overhead stuff. This is pretty sucky. Okay, so I got the light rigged. This was the best I could do. I need to work on that. Anyway, so all I got is a light shining in my face here. But you don't have as many shadows as you had before, although it's probably not great still. So what I'm going to do with the neck jig is I'm not setting dial indicators and all this stuff. In fact, one of my dial indicators is on my other dealie I used when I was checking the neck angle here. So here's the way this works, is strap around the peg head here, and then I push up, and I guess you're not going to be able to see that. Push up on the peg head, strap around the nut into the peg head, and then push up on the tip of the peg head with this little jack on this end. And I guess I'll continue to move that camera so you can see that. Okay, that's going to go up underneath here. So right now, I have got, now when I had frets in this thing, I checked it off the top of the frets, and I had an underbow, a relief of about 7 thousandths. And if you recall, I hope I'm getting this correct, I had about 12 thousandths of back bow with string tension on it. When I took the strings off of it, before I pulled the frets, I had 7 thousandths of relief. So at any rate, talking to my customer, and he's feeling like he really wants to have very little neck relief. I told him about where standard on acoustics is around 12. I usually shoot for, if you have an adjustable truss rod, you can play with it. You can play with that geometry. But if you don't have an adjustable truss rod, well, you've got to bang frets in. That's what this is. This is compression fretting, so you have fatter tangs in strategic locations along the board in order to give yourself some back bow. I'm going to set this thing up for a little bit of back bow right from the start. I'm gonna want to have this thing being somewhere probably around 6 maybe 8 thousandths of back bow, and I'll see what that does. Worst case scenario is I pop a couple frets out and try wider tangs. All right, so just to find out where we're at right now, there's no tension on the neck whatsoever. And I do have, okay, I have a little bit of a ridge. See, right now, I'm hitting here on this fret, number 3. I'm hitting the fretboard. I'm not hitting the fretboard up here on 1 or 2, but I'm hitting the fretboard on 3. And this strap isn't holding me up any. And then I'm up here at the body joint, so at 14 I'm hitting, and then everywhere else is not so bad. So I could find out what the relief is, but I'm really not worried about that at this point. So what I'm going to do is going to find a little piece of padding here. That I can put under here. I don't want to mar this. This finish. Okay, I'm going to brace up the rest of the neck here, just so it doesn't move around as I sand. Okay, now I've got a flat straight block. This is wider than I normally use, but it's got the right grit on it. So I'm just gonna, basically I'm gonna get these high ridges off of here and then double check all my setup for flat. I wanted to get it to close to flat before I did this part of it. And so far, not hitting anything out here in the middle. Just hitting the hump at the fretboard and the right at the first fret. So I'm going to get something shorter, like a little file, and just knock these ridges off, and then I'm going to continue to set this up so it's flat. All right, let me turn the light. I couldn't do this with the light shining in my eyes. So it was harder for me to figure out what I was doing anyway. But what I ended up doing was I added a block back here at the heel so I could really get a rigid connection there. And then I pretty much took all the pressure I had off the strap, and it came up straight between here and here. And then it's pretty much I set this middle rod, and I loosened the strap a little bit, and it came up some more. And I'm within 2/1000ths, which is less than a human hair, right? So I think I can tolerate that. And that's I'm actually hitting right out here at the end. Get some drag, and then I'm hitting at the 2nd fret. And then from there on out, I'm less than 2/1000ths all the way back to the fall away. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and sand the board out, and that's going to keep me straight and flat. And I got all these things under here for bracing. I am going to get my regular sanding board here and get after this thing with that. And there's a bit of material to move here. You can see from that adjustment. I think you can see it. Now maybe you'll see it better without the light on. Let's try that. Yeah, you can see this lighter area right here. So I'm already taking material here and here, and so that won't take long. Now I do have some rather deep divots here, and I'm going to sand a bit on this, and I'm going to call my customer. So I don't know if we want to take all of that out or not. I'm not sure exactly how deep those things are. So that's it for a while. Okay, so I have flat sanded this with, this is actually a 60 grit on here. Then I went over it with my 16-inch radius block with 60 grit folded around it. Then I have 80 grit on there, and I did it with 80 grit. And I'm getting ready to go to 220 on this side of the beam. And I've been checking it for straight, checking it for the correct radius, which is a 16-inch radius all the way, all the time. I've only got just a few divots left here, and they're primarily on the first three, and they're fairly heavy yet. There's no way I'm going to chase those out. I would end up with quite a bit less fretboard, and nobody's going to be happy about that. So it's a 220, and it's the same process. You sand straight from the center line of the fretboard, and this fretboard has dots. It has different size dots, which makes it kind of interesting. But basically, if you're centered on those dots, even as you roll over the edge, you're keeping your cylinder or your radius. When you, I know I've been over all this stuff before, but you know, it depends on how far back you want to watch my videos. When you sand with the fretboard, or with the angle of the fretboard, you're actually sanding a cone, and that would be a compound radius. And this guitar does not have a compound radius, so we're going to maintain our 16-inch radius by sanding a cylinder, not a cone. Okay, so it's a little tricky before you get used to doing it, because basically you're working your way off of the fretboard on the narrow end while maintaining your contact on the back of the fretboard. So at any rate, I'm going to do this for a while. I'm going to get down to 220, then I'm going to go to 320, and that's plenty. And I will also hit it again with the 16-inch radius block on with 320. And that's pretty much all it takes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of this stuff just like I told you. 220 to 320, and then 320 in a radius block. And double check, make sure everything's still straight, everything's sweet, and then I'm done with the neck. As far as the sand, as far as the straightening out the neck goes, then I'm going to get it out of this jig. I'm going to do all that tonight because I don't want to leave this guitar in a jig overnight. I don't like these things when they're strapped down like this. It's an ends to a means. Anyway, so that's that. I'm going to get the sanding done and get it out of the jig.